Okay, our final speaker from the platform is Jenny Sutton. She's the branch secretary at Cornell of UCU and she's on the national executive of the union.
Thank you. Well, we've heard about the attacks that we're under from the police, from the state. We all experience it in every aspect of our daily lives. And I suppose the question that we have to ask ourselves is, we know that the majority are under attack. So why isn't this coalition swept aside in the tide of anger that is quite clearly there? Well, we've got the oldest ruling class in the world in this country, and they're sharpened by years of colonial oppression. So they're very clever. And Owen's already made reference to their tactics, their psychological tactics of divide and rule that they use so effectively. But we've all experienced these, again, in our daily lives. If you're poor, if you're unemployed, then you're taught, firstly, to blame yourself. So if you've got a disability, you need support, that's your fault. It's your fault for having too many children, unless, of course, they're royal sprogs, but there's always room for them. If you haven't got EMA, you haven't had the educational maintenance allowance, or can't afford tuition fees, you haven't got any qualifications. Again, that's your fault. Or if you don't speak English, you can't read and write, it's your fault. And I don't know if some of you might have seen in the papers this week, a new charity has been launched in the UK. It's called Dress for Success. It helps unemployed women get back into work through transformative makeovers. So, ladies, it's your fault for not touching up those roots and putting on your lipstick. And it's the big society in action, because one of the workers for this new charity is Samantha Cameron herself. So not only do we blame ourselves, but we get punished for being unemployed. I have the misfortune of teaching one of these compulsory jobs, employability skills courses for people who are on JSA. If you don't attend, the first sanction now is you lose benefit for 4 weeks. That then goes up to 6 months, and that's 3 years. And as teachers, we're meant to act as benefit police and report on those who don't attend our classes. And if we choose not to play that role, then we face potential dismissal for gross misconduct. So we blame ourselves, we're punished, and then we're expected to blame our neighbour. I'm white, you stole my council house because you're black or you're brown. I speak English, you stole my job because you speak Polish or Romanian or Lingala. And I'm Christian, you threaten my security because you're Muslim. This is the false unity that the Tories, this is their big lie, that we're all in it together. Because what they want us to think is that if you're the same colour as the senior manager, you speak the same language, and we all wear jeans and flip-flops now, then we have got a unity. But let's not forget that those FTSE 100 directors, they got a 49% pay rise this year, 55% last year. And we know, as has already been stated eloquently by Owen, the rich are getting richer. London's the most unequal city in the developed world, and the richest 10% in the UK are now 273 times wealthier than the poorest 10%. The polarisation is worse than in Victorian Britain. But the money's there. For every household in this country, the amount of money that's been handed over to the finance sector in the form of bailouts, loans, etc., it's nearly 50 grand for every household in the country, because it's the 1.2 trillion that's been handed over to them. The rich are facing £14,000 a year tax cuts for the millionaires, when we know that unpaid tax could wipe out the deficit just like that. We share the cost, they privatise the profit. What we have to recognise is that we have real unity of interest. And the real unity of interest is between workers in the public and the private sector, those of us who stack the shelves, who teach the children, who serve the food, clean the streets, drive the buses, whatever colour or language, we are the people who keep the machine moving, and that is where the real unity is. And we are all facing attacks. Wage cuts, attack on employment rights, erosion of terms and conditions. And that unity between workers and the unemployed is critical, because they deliberately keep the numbers of the unemployed high, to keep down the wages and conditions of those who work, and to keep up the profits of those who own or those who manage. What we need is a unity of resistance. And there was a moment, 2010, 2011, when it appeared that that resistance, that unity of resistance, was gathering momentum. Many of us were there, or cheering, watching the students at Millbank in November 2010, when the Tory party and that wave of resistance we've seen internationally, those at the sharp end of crisis and repression, the Arab Spring, the Egyptian revolution, mass protests, occupations, general strikes in Greece, Spain, Italy, France and Portugal. All over the world we can see that the world is burning. People are demanding that the interests of the 99% prevail over those of the 1%. And in the UK, there have been inspirational community and single-issue campaigns. The unforgettable moment at the Olympics, the Paralympics, when Osborne was booed. Who never heard? DPAC, Disabled People Against the Cuts, which has been astonishing in its effectiveness. UK Uncut, local anti-cuts campaigns. Here in Haringey, our very own HAPS, Haringey Alliance for Private, Haringey Alliance for Public Services, which is going to be lobbying outside the Civic Centre tomorrow at 6:30, and I do urge everybody here to be along there tomorrow. And that culminated in the 26th of March 2011, the biggest ever trade union demonstration. 30th of June 2011, 700,000 public sector workers on strike in this country, unprecedented. And then the high point, 30th of November 2011, where we saw 2.6 million workers on strike in this country, the most since the general strike. Well, what's happened since then? In a sense, what we've seen is the anger hasn't abated, but the forces that should be given expression and leadership to that resistance are reneging on their responsibilities. In December 2011, the TUC brokered a deal on pensions, the heads of agreement, which essentially represented the sellout of the fight against the pensions. GMB, Unison, the big unions failed to take forward the momentum that had been started by the 2010 student protests and actually put the brake on resistance. Well, the situation we face now, the spectre, is Greece. What we see in Greece is the rise of fascism. The Nazi Golden Dawn Party, they're now third in the polls. They're a parliamentary party, but openly attacking black people, immigrants, the left, and activists. And in Greece, people with diabetes are dying unless they can afford to buy insulin on the open market. That's what's happening in Greece. That's what's starting to happen in Spain. That's what's threatening maybe in Italy, in Portugal. That's the spectre that we're facing. What we have to recognise is that future is not inevitable. We have to stop the machine turning, and we can do that. But we need to translate that anger on the streets into real action, into strike action. We need to move towards a general strike, because unless we can stop the machine turning, then all of us will suffer, and particularly the young. What's going on at the moment is there's a battle going on, not so much between the left and the right within the trade union movements, but oh my goodness. I don't know whether somebody left or Dead Morris. But between the bureaucracy that's holding back the trade union movements and the rank and the file. The TUC voted to consider a general strike, but the union bureaucracy won't take the lead. And we have the spectacle now of the union leadership all standing there and saying, yes, we need to take action, but we can't take action unless we all take action together. And I'm not going to go first. No, I'm not going to go first. I might be left there standing holding the baby. Well, it's up to us. The pressure has got to come from below. Because unfortunately, the agenda of many of the trade union leadership is to say, hold, pause, let's wait for a Labour government. But I'm sorry, we had 13 years of Labour, and what was the legacy? It was illegal war. It was the growing inequality and the division between the rich and the poor. It was tuition fees. It was the privatisation of public services. And what's Miliband and Bulls offering? More cuts. It's got to be up to us to pressurise from below, to force the trade union movement, and not just in the trade unions, it's got to be that coalition in the street, in the unions, in the community. We've got to stand together. There is no easy solution, but we have to keep on keeping on, because we know that people are willing to fight. In October, 200,000 people marched on the TUC demonstration. 25,000 marched for Lewisham Hospital. There have been mass protests against the tax on benefits, a 5-day strike of NHS workers in Yorkshire, R&T cleaners in the North East striking, 250,000 civil servants in PECS balloting for strike action. So the willingness is there, but we have to keep the pressure from below. We have got to take action, support each other wherever that action emerges. And that means we all need to be outside the town hall at 6:30 tomorrow. We all need to be on the 1,000 Mothers March on the 13th of April in Haringey. We all need to be outside workplaces whenever there's a picket line, whenever there's resistance. We need to unite that resistance. We need to stand together, because what we have to do is to remember that we are many, they are few. Thank you.